Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a real melon farmer who never pays for sushi. It's Nicholas Rehack.
I refuse. I'm going to show up and I'm not going to pay. Plain and simple. There's crimes to do, so I'm not going to waste time paying for sushi.
This is a really random story, but my cousin Donnie and I, whenever there's a major MMA event, we will bet on the headliner. And whoever wins, sometimes if we both win, or sometimes if one person wins, one person loses, we just send each other movies. Basically, it's an excuse for he and I to chat and send each other movies. Donnie sent me Repo Man, the Criterion edition of this. Nice, and I was like, oh, this looks fun. Like, I haven't seen Repo Man. Like, this is awesome. I'm going to watch this. And then you and I are talking about movies, and you're like, yeah, Repo Man. I'm like, oh, so let's do Repo Man. And while watching this, I realized that they had the TV cut on the Criterion disc, the one where they bleep out all the F words and they say flippin' and melon farmers. And it's one of the most joyous experiences of my life. And thank you, Donnie, for sending me the wonderful Repo Man Blu-ray. It's just awesome. But like melon farmer, like you melon farmers, like that's going to be my new you punk bunch of suckers line. It's just I love this movie, Nick, and I'm so glad that you recommended it. And that was a long story, but I don't care. Donnie needs props.
No, I think it was great. I want to be in the room when they do the TV edits and they're like, all right, what can we use? So let's just start throwing out some names. There's no wrong answers here. Like, let's come up with something. And then someone's like, melon farmers. Like, go. Write it up. Go.
Oh, man, it's just so... Can I tell... Like, you know what I love about this movie? Is that Otto is such a shithead.
He is. He really is. There's nothing redeemable about him, and there's no need to cheer for him. Like, at all.
He's one of those guys, too, that I love where he's walking around the street. Hey, here's $20. Be a Repo Man. He becomes a Repo Man, and he starts dressing like a Repo Man. And then in the original script, they were going to have him be a revolutionary who travels down to South America and starts fighting the Contras, I think. But then they had to change the script halfway through, and then they ended up have him not being a revolutionary. But they're basically, the director was just saying that this dude's just kind of Alex Cox is like, this dude's just sort of a blank slate. He just sort of exists, and he's sarcastic, and he's just funny, but Emilio's perfect as that. Like, Emilio, the way he reacts to everything, like, this is a reactionary performance, so. And just, like, I love it when his friends come in, he's like, this is her and her weird friend. It's such a stupid, I love this movie, 90 minutes, and this wasn't, we hadn't watched this, you and I had never watched this movie before.
Never before, no.
Like, and you said this wasn't on your radar, like, this wasn't, this wasn't even close. Like, it's not like I could just take a left turn and it's on my radar. This was nowhere near it. Under it, over it. Didn't exist. And now I love it.
It's one that I'm going to revisit at least once a year. And it's one that I want to recommend to people, but I have to pick and choose who I recommend it to. Because there's some people that will love it and run with it, and other people that'll be like, why would you, like, ever think? And I'm like, well, sometimes you got to think outside the box. Like, who doesn't love Harry Dean Stanton just frowning and scowling the entire time? Like,
I don't want any commies or Christians in my car.
What do you say? Or Christians? I'm like, okay, well, he might as well have just said anybody. I don't want anybody in my car.
And you know why I think I missed this is because, so growing up, I was the guy who got the VHS tape of Empire Records. Or, in college, it was Old Boy or Layer Cake, Donnie Darko. Like, I was the guy who got, like, my coworkers, I was working in a movie theater and like, Mark, check this out. Like, it was normally an older coworker, and they would slip me a, Killer Clowns from Outer Space or something like that. And so I think, this was that movie in the 80s, I would say. Like, the VHS came out after Top Gun made it really easy to kind of buy VHS tapes. And I think that's when the cult of this, and the soundtrack, of course. But I think when I was kind of growing up, maybe it wasn't passed around as much. Maybe it was more about like watching Kids or watching like Empire Records. So I think this sort of missed just at my age. And then so now watching it, it's kind of a bummer because this is like a Dazed and Confused for me in that it's a hangout picture. It's a series of vignettes that, it was supposed to be a tighter story, but a lot of it got cut during the production, and the Malibu got stolen. They had to find another one, and then the script got changed, so then it just became a bunch of random scenes put together, but with wonderful speeches. And so I think this is a movie you can put on and just, when I say Dazed and Confused, and just sort of hang out with. Like, this is a movie you can just put on and hang out. Repo Man. Like, just come in and out, exist with it.
Yeah. And it's one of those, too, where you can put it on in the background and then come to it and catch maybe a vignette that's your favorite. And then you dial in on it and you're like, all right, let me go do this thing. And then you come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I really agree with that, the vignette thing. Because you could make this any job. You could make it pizza delivery people. You could make it any job and it would still work as a film.
Oh, man, just the helping hand and the crew and the John Wayne conversations and the lattice
John
of
Wayne
coincidence.
conversation killed me. I was rolling, just dying laughing.
You know, Alex Cox said that was based on a real, like, so he was working with a guy named Swati came to his house, and he worked for Arrow Glass and Mirror. And this guy Swati said he put those mirrors into John Wayne's house and really saw it. But he told the story very earnestly. So when he was talking to Alex Cox, that was his, like, no irony, just straightforward. This is, yeah, like, I saw John Wayne do that. So then he put it in the script, and they're like, no one ever said anything, so I guess it was fine. Like, no one ever complained, like, his estate. So it just,
yeah.
Like, I don't know, I just kind of love that scene. Listen, man, I love watching my friends have sex with people. Like,
yeah, don't you? Yeah,
me too. And one guy's
I didn't
drinking
get a harumph out of that guy. Harumph.
One guy's drinking whiskey, the other and a beer at the same time. It's such an odd, but that's why it works. I think Alex Cox was still quite young. He didn't quite have it. Like, I feel like movies like this come from young Linklater, like Slacker, or Clerks, or like.
I'm so glad you just said Clerks, because in my mind I'm equating the John Wayne conversation to, stormtroopers on the Death Star that they have in Clerks. Like, that's all that is just one of those random one-off conversations. Everybody dies laughing, and then you just get back to work.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I was just thinking it.
But you'll never see this from a established director. I don't think. Like, this energy doesn't exist. Like, remember, Spike Lee to Do the Right Thing. Like, the energy in that movie is untouchable. And now he's grown he's an amazing director. The Five Bloods, Black Klansmen are incredible, but the energy of Do the Right Thing, the energy of Clerks compared to, I don't know, Cop Out. It's completely different. I love it when these young directors get on and just sort of find this really, like, lightning in a bottle vibe. And this, man, 90 minutes, it's just so watchable, though. And I do like Emilio, because I feel like he understands exactly what this Otto needs to be. Just like an idiot suburban punk. I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's a reactive thing, and he plays it well. He just kind of hangs back, lets the scene dictate how he needs to be, and then he just is. And a lot of time, too, in the film, he's kind of just in the way. Like, he positions himself to where he has to interact with someone or something and kind of be that person, be like, what are you doing? Get off of me. And be in the very beginning when he's hanging out with all the Repo people, and he's in front of the little door that opens up, and a guy just comes in and says, get out, just moves him, and he keeps on walking and doing his thing. Like, he forces himself to be the center of that scene, as unlikable as he is, but we're drawn to him because, in a way, we're that character. We've entered this world, and we're like, I don't understand these people. I don't understand what I'm doing. Like, why should I this? Why should I that? I mean, obviously, we're a little bit nicer. We're not going to force our newly found girlfriends into compromising situations that they don't want to be a part of, which was a real bummer of a scene.
Yeah.
But, it's just one of those things where, in a weird way, like, he is just our channel into it.
And it's funny? He gets slapped twice, and he just laughs about it. Like, yeah, fair enough. Like, he doesn't. So he's not like, oh, why not? He's like, haha, you. It's such a.
Like, that was his goal.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, nailed it.
He's just a shit kicker. The white suburban punks. I blame society. No.
Blame yourself a little bit.
Like, he's like, I call BS on that. We're white suburban punks. I worked at a bar called Big Daddy's. But at this bar, we had a bunch of, like, hardcore bands like Terror or Comeback Kid way back in the early 2000s. Lucero, My Chemical Romance played there before they were big, and we had a lot of these sort of middle class punks that came through, where, like, they weren't quite wearing old clothes, they were wearing newish clothes that were made to look kind of old, and it was, but then occasionally, like, when we had a big hardcore show and kids from Jacksonville came in, everyone's like, all the punks were like, oh no, the Jacksonville kids, because they were kind of the real ones. And so it was always fun watching the sort of white suburban or just suburban punks deal with the kind of real punks, if that makes sense. And I always enjoyed watching that because you get these kids who are super tough, but then Jacksonville kids come and
Then
it was on.
I always knew kind of that like posers, if you will, in air quotes, and then it's like, oh no, like this is they know what that struggle is, they know what that truth is.
Just drinking unhealthy amounts of Four Loko, and whenever it was a tough show, I had to stand in front of my boss's door because they would always try to kick it in. So I had to stand in front of his door, and then I had to keep a space open because everybody tried to rip the speakers off the ceiling. So then as soon as a kid went for the speakers on the ceiling, I had to like grab them in the air and then like carry them out. So most of my job was just sort of making sure that they didn't tear the entire place apart or throw all of our trash. We had to move our trash cans because they would throw them off the balcony. So like we kind of had to keep them inside.
That's and so
like it was, you knew the real ones when the real ones came. And I was like, this is going to be a rough night. Like I'm going to get someone wedged behind the dart machine. I'm going to blow my back out. It's going to be one of those nights. But
great. Gigi Allen's coming through. Can he not?
Not
Can we not get Gigi in here today?
Where's my hazmat suit? Actually, that would make me stick out if he saw me wearing that.
He'd be like, oh, this is my guy. No, I'm not Gigi.
No.
Please go back on stage. Please go back on stage.
Just see me running.
Stop. He's away from the door. Kick it down now.
Stop. I have some razor blades for you. It's dark. It's really dark.
Oh, yeah, it's a venue. You got to have it dark so you can see what's going on the stage.
Oh, man. Yeah, but, yeah, so I had some weird nights at that bar, man, but it was fun. I had a pool party with Aquabats.
Okay. Was it a cool pool party?
No, it was not.
Okay.
It was not. Because I ran there and I went, pool party, but I had a bunch of beer in my arms, and they were like, I'm going to let you have that. I feel like you can say the dumbest things as long as you have the goods.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Like, I don't see why not. And then if you nail the dumb thing you say, then they like you, and then they're your man, and they want to keep you in.
Yeah, I didn't say anything about fashion zombies, though, so I think they were happy
okay.
about that.
They probably in their head were ready for it. They're like, well, he just says with this. What's he going to do next?
But I got to tell you, though, like Otto, people like him feel very familiar at times because you do meet these people in life occasionally where they show up for these shows, they cause chaos, and then they disappear. Mm-hmm. And you never really get their personality out of them. You never really get to know them, but they're there. And they sort of, you know nothing about them, actually. You see them at every show and they're punching somebody. So he nails that, though. And it makes me realize how good Charlie Sheen and Estevez were early on with Platoon and this. Like, they had it. Like, I loved it.
Well, they have it in their blood, you know?
The Sheen.
I mean, look at that, like Martin Sheen and everything and all the work that he's done and that he continues to do. Like, I mean, obviously his sons took more of a, I don't want to say avant-garde, but not as dramatic as their dad, roles and everything. And it just works. And for me, it's really interesting to see Emilio in this role. Before this, I had known him Breakfast Club and Mighty Ducks. That was really it. So to see this role with him in it, I'm like, oh, now I want to branch out and see some of the other stuff that he's done. And has he carried that energy into it? Because those other characters, he's established, right? He's the jock. He's the coach that has a drinking problem that's going to come back from it. But like you say, this is a blank slate, and you can even see it in his eyes sometimes when he's initially driving with Harry Dean Stanton in a car, and somehow it keeps jumping back and forth between daytime and nighttime and daytime again. You can see in his face that he's just kind of drinking it all in and letting it become the thing. And because of that lack of emotion and that lack of like, look at me, it allows us to focus on Stanton a little bit more and what's going around. And then when it comes time for them to, partake in some extracurricular activities, drugs, then all of a sudden they're back together and it becomes like a not a buddy cop movie, but you know what I mean? Like a fun buddy movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so perfect what you said, because I think all the best scenes in this movie are when he's sitting in the car with Light and Light's just talking to him and telling him what to do and he doesn't. When he's standing by the fire with Miller and they're talking about the lattice of coincidence, which is unbelievable. And when he says, the more you drive, the less intelligent you are, I sat there and I thought about it. When's the last time you watched a movie, Nick, and just someone said something and you went, I'm going to consider this. Like, is that, like, this is something I wish I would have watched back in maybe 03, 04, or, in college when you're sitting around your
Mhm.
buddies and someone says that and you think about it. Because when you're driving, I guess you have to focus on the road or the songs or your makeup or texting, and then becoming just a 80 mile an hour piece of metal and gasoline weapon flying through the highway while you're looking at your phone. But you're turning, you're twisting, you're listening to music, you're putting on your blinkers, you're parking, you're worried about gas. But I guess some of my favorite memories, Nick, are when I was living in Korea and I would take a 4-hour bus ride, maybe down to Busan, or I would take an hour and a half bus ride to Seoul, and you sort of sit on the bus and you sort of exist in that realm,
Yeah.
or read, or it's interesting he said that. It's one of my favorite quotes from this movie. I'm not going to go all ninth grade philosopher on you, but I like it. I like what he said a lot. And there is something to be said for just taking time to watch the world and think.
I will say this, when I'm hanging out with, like, my buddy Dane, for example, when I'm hanging out at his place in Philly and we're in the same room, we're just chit-chatting and bebopping.
No, you're not. You're throwing Wawa jugs back and forth at each other. Like, you're juggling half-gallon Wawa iced teas.
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time, we're trying to drink them. We're trying to sneak drinks in while we do it. But when he and I go on road trips and everything, we talk so much slower and so much more direct because we're in a car and one of us is focusing on the road and the other one acknowledges that. So we just kind of talk slower, and it kind of feels like, not that we're not intelligent, but it takes us a while to, like, come up with ideas or the words. And that's not the case, but it's just that acknowledgement of, like, oh, I'm in a very different surrounding. Oh, I'm in a moving vehicle doing 80, and we're both texting at the same time trying to talk to each other, which we kind of did because we were in a Tesla and it drove itself. But, I do like that idea because, like you said, when you do really sit down and think about it, you start to go like, okay, it does make sense because of this. It does make sense because of that.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know, I dig it. Like, I love those conversations too. I got a buddy named Johnny Party, super quiet guy. But one night we were at a bar, he doesn't talk much. He's like, you know what, I think gin and tonics are the perfect drink because gin's not that strong. You put tonic in it, it's kind of hydrating, and there's ice. So you're kind of hydrating yourself while you're consuming alcohol. And it's not like beer, that's just a lot. So like, then we started talking about, like, well, what is the ideal drink? Like, it's stupid conversations like that sometimes that I miss. Like, I haven't had one of those in how long? College, or 2008 maybe. But I like this. I like that idea. Like, I like to sitting by a fire, throwing stuff in there, and listening to a dude talk, and then you ask him if he's done a lot of acid. Like, some fun conversations have come from that, and I like that.
I was at work because the other day my wife judged me. I ran out of bread and I wanted a PB&J, so I put it on a sandwich roll. Right? No big deal. Like it's a roll you would eat for a hamburger. Nope. PB&J'd it up and ate it. Right? Not a big deal. I was outcast. Brought it up at work, and I said, hey, fellas, this is a situation. They went off on tangents for 30-plus minutes on sandwiches. How if you put cheese on the bottom versus the top, it completely changes the taste and the flavor. If you put the lettuce a different way, if you take the ham and you don't just lay it flat, if you kind of like feather it so it looks like it is in the pictures, how that changed. Like, they were going on and on and on. And part of me was like, fellas, this was simple. Have you done this before or not? But like you said, you don't know where the conversation's going to go, and it just goes. Just like this, they're in a car and the car just goes. And whatever happens to them, they just kind of, I don't know, they just make it happen. And it's the weirdest thing. Like the rat, he's like, oh, try this out. He's like, okay, never seen or heard of this before. Tries it, doesn't work in his favor. But it's still, like you said, that you don't know where it's going to go. And then when it does go there, you're like, okay, that does kind of make sense in like a weird way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what this movie is, like a conversation that has many twists and turns and then gets somewhere. And again, I guess it makes sense now because we're here, and that's what this movie gets with a car, a wildly radiated car, an Emilio.
Emilio. He tips his hat.
Wait, that. Is this like we did the night at the Roxbury Pulp Fiction draft, and now we're talking about another Emilio movie. Is this your way of sneaking in more Emilio into the movies, films, and flicks world?
I'm not against it.
Mark, have you heard of Maximum Overdrive? It's
going to turn to Emilio. Emilio films and flicks.
Then the EMFF. Emilio. Oh
You know what I enjoy most about the different vignettes and different things it changes? There's no real full like thread or tying line except for the characters and the little trees, because they show him the rat trick, never does it again.
Yep, never.
They show how to do, like, he chews gum and he uses the foil
Yeah, that was
to kind of
good.
start a car. Never does it again. When it's just all these different things, and it never happens again. And it's rule of threes, right? If it's supposed to happen 3 times, they're supposed to do that, and it doesn't. It's just, we're done with that now onto something completely different.
There's no Chekhov's rat. There's no Chekhov's gum wrapper.
No.
It's just existing in this world. And I do love all the lattice of coincidence stuff. Like when they get to the gas station. Like, I don't know if you noticed this, but I was listening to the commentary on this movie. But then they have Harry Pace on all the posters, and then they're at Pace Gas. And then he has a happy face pin throughout the movie.
Huh.
So you have like these weird coincidences: Pace Gas, Harry Pace, smiley face, happy face. And they did that throughout the entire movie. They just added and there's a shrimp when there's a shrimp like they're talking about shrimp lunch when when the punks steer the car. It's just I don't know, I kind of love it. It just makes me happy that like there's little things in here with the production design that add to the lattice of coincidence. Lattice of coincidence. I have this. Where did I write that down? I have it. I'm pretty sure I have it circled here.
And then it makes you think too. Like, this obviously is not a film that was thrown together. Sure, there's some moments that are fun, and I'm sure we're like borderline improvised. But if they're doing little things like that throughout, this is a very thought out, more grandly executed than you expect film that people give it credit for. Like, I'm not saying it's one of those Children of Men where there's a whole separate story in the background versus the foreground, but there's you're throwing out about the paces and the faces. Like, there's to me a lot that like kind of adds up like that.
And I think that's why it works so well too, because this movie's not an accident. I think you hire Harry Dean Stanton, you hire these excellent actors. You're in LA. You have Iggy Pop writing your theme song. And it was interesting. He said at the time he was living in LA, and he's like, yeah, I was living in an apartment. There's nothing in there except for me, a futon, a guitar, and a Japanese woman who didn't speak English. And he said that Alex Cox came to me and just was like, hey man, write a song. And so they gave him the script, and then he wrote the song for the movie. And that's what got that's what got this movie back on the radar. They released it. The studio saw it and they went, what? Because there's really no romance. There's really no excessive violence. There's really no alien hijinks. There's there's no principal giving people detention. There's not too much nudity. So the studio didn't know what to do with it. And then the soundtrack hit big and sold about 50,000 copies. You have the Circle Jerks on there. You have some pretty big names. Like, the score is legit. And then that sold, and then they put it back in theaters. It became a modest success, and then it just blew up on VHS when people could buy it or rent it or rip it. How many people, I bet you, watched the rip TV copy with melon farmers and you flipping people, because like that's what you did. Like, when I watched Under Siege as a kid, it's because someone ripped it from HBO. So I think it just got passed around. But like you said, I mean, it's just, there's some really, and also too, I really do believe that the MVP of this movie is the cinematography from Robbie Mueller. Now, this is a guy who, he's Jarmusch's guy. Like, he shot Coffee and Cigarettes, which is one of my favorite movies. He also worked for Lars von Trier. Like, this is a dude who shot Dead Man.
What a life.
Yeah, like Mystery Train. Like, this is a guy who, To Live and Die in LA, Paris, Texas. Like, this guy is an excellent cinematographer, and I love his wide shots. Whether it's there's so much dolly work in this movie when Otto's walking and they're talking about the winos, and the opening shot when the car pulls up and the cop stops him, and that beautiful shot when they go up to the house where Otto gets shot at. You have that wide shot that moves around. This is a guy who, he didn't want a lot of coverage. Actually, Alex Cox had to fight for it. They had to go to second unit to actually get more footage. But the cinematography gives it amount of class that makes it work. So you have the beautiful cinematography. Like you said, there's the paces and the faces popping around. You have the mentions of shrimp. You have a weird, like, interesting conversations, and it gives it a pedigree that that's the reason it's on Criterion. I mean, this movie is what, 7.6 on IMDb, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes,
which threw me off.
Right?
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Like 98%, but it's a 98% movie. It is.
Yeah.
Because it is. I was going to say it is what it is, but whenever I say that phrase, I always just feel a little uncomfortable.
Did I just die a little bit inside? I think.
It is what it is. Or is it?
To further your point, too, when he's having that conversation with Bud in the car, Harry Dean Stanton's character, and Harry Dean leaches over, turns the car off on him, and, Otto Emilio just gets out of the car and starts walking. That scene where he's just walking along and it's following him, all of a sudden it's like, this feels like a completely different film, and it's so well shot. The music just works perfectly along with it. It's like it tells its own story. And it's moments like that where I'm like, wow, this film has a lot more to offer than what I think people give it credit for. Even those that are like, they love the film and the cult behind the film. But even then, I think there's some people that it goes that much further beyond what they think it is.
Absolutely. And I used to work with I forget his name right now, but what he had a website called Making a Scene. And what he would do is he would hand draw scenes from movies. So I have a Life Aquatic one in my house. I have Tron. Nice. I have Rocky IV. I have a few others of his moments. But I would love to have the air freshener on the motorcycle.
Ooh.
Like, if I could have him draw that scene and just, because there's so many, like, Robbie Mueller shot the heck out of this movie, and that's so cheeky, seeing that air freshener on the motorcycle. And it just makes me so happy. And also too, I'm really glad that this episode hasn't kind of devolved into, not the face. Oh, you hit my face. And just let's go get sushi and not pay for it. And like, there's so many quotable lines in this movie that it just makes this movie makes me happy. I wish I had more for you, but it's just
there's a lot of moments in this film that could easily be made into posters. Like, could you imagine if Tim Doyle just went to town on this? Like when Emilio Estevez is sitting on the train tracks and you got, the setting sun behind him in the distance, just that color palette alone, like that would just be outstanding.
I told you that. I have 5 Tim Doyle prints just sitting here that I'm looking at right now. Wes Anderson.
Yeah. I know you're a fan.
Yeah,
that's why
great.
I threw it out there. I'm like, Mark's gonna like this.
We got one of his Spirited Away ones as well. So nice. Yeah. Oh, and we got a Star Wars one for my daughter's room from him. So yeah, nice. If he did that Very shot, cool. Like that's exactly the way he would do it. But I also think, I'm not saying exactly, but I do think Tarantino, Linklater, I mean, a lot of people have said this movie was an influence on them. And you can see it, like you said, with the John Wayne conversation, the beautiful wide shots, the series of vignettes, the everyday life, letting characters breathe. Like that's, directors had to have pulled something from that.
That's Reservoir Dogs. You take out John Wayne, you put Madonna in there, you move it to the front of the film rather than the midpoint. That's Reservoir Dogs. They're breathing. They don't even focus on the robbery itself. They focus on everything around the robbery. Sure, everybody's looking for this Malibu, but like you said, there's that lattice of coincidences going all around the Malibu until they finally get to it, and then it really gets weird. Like really weird.
And listen, you can tell that they had to go through rewrites on set and they had to change the ending because it's not all wholly coherent. But if this movie ended in a very coherent way or on a very like nihilistic way, I don't think it would have totally worked. I think it sort of needs this mystery. It needs more Miller. Like Miller was the MVP, so they wrote the ending to give him more scenes. So I think they needed to build to that. And then didn't have enough money for action, so then they can't really do too many action scenes, even though some good Uzi staircase work. In the 80s, everybody had an Uzi.
That was the thing.
It's like, hey man, like here's a tissue. It's like, hey man, here's an Uzi.
Thanks. Here's your tab. Oh, great.
Great. Here's another Uzi, just for
Uzis and tab.
Yeah. And you know who could have Oh gosh, Carl Weathers does the ad for it because like he did Cult 45. No wait, no he didn't do Cult
Billy D.
45.
Williams.
Billy D. Williams. Oops, well I messed up there. Give me a second. That sounds bad. Yeah, Billy D. Williams does the ad for that.
Mm-hmm.
So he has oh man, Uzi and Tab. It's like a McDonald's thing. You buy a meal and you get like a.
You get a little kid-size Uzi.
With
You used to ask, like, is it for a boy or a girl? Let's go for the boy. It's a little blue Uzi. If it's a girl, it's a little pink Uzi. Like
Uzi market.
Uzi market's crazy right now.
So okay,
I guess
this is a really random story, and I was
I'm for it.
I was pretty much up for anything in college. So one day, some people are like, "Hey, Mark, let's go to the shooting range." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, cool." So I went to the shooting range, and the guy there had an Uzi, and I don't know why he had it, but he had an Uzi. And they were like, "Mark, do you want to shoot it?" I'm like, "Do I want to shoot a Uzi?" Yes, I want to shoot an Uzi. But like on movies, when you see people double fisting Uzis and spinning around and nailing people, that doesn't happen, man. I missed the target with every shot, and I blew up the wooden leg post on the very bottom of it. Like, I didn't even come close to the target. I blew up the stand that was holding it. So, yeah, Uzi work is tough. I just want to let you know. It's not like in Major League 2.
No, you got the recoil of it and the volume, the sound so loud. It's much louder than you think it would be.
It's a lot. And I was like, I'm not going to shoot this again. I don't feel comfortable shooting this again.
Check it off my list. One and done.
Yeah,
shot Uzi. The next one.
Shot Uzi.
No big deal.
I'm done. But yeah, I don't think they had enough for action scenes. I think they just needed to rely on the characters, and they had such strong, like even the Rodriguez brothers. I love them. Like the two of those guys together, just the outfits. When the car gets stolen, they just sit there and have a drink together. They sip from their drinks, and this car is hot. No, it's really hot. Like the people exist. You know what? You know why this is a good movie? Is I have a weird theory. When you know the names of the characters in the movie, I feel like it's a good movie. Like Bud, you got Otto, you got Light, like just the Rodriguezes. Like when you refer to them as their characters and not the you're not like, oh, Emilio was amazing or Tom Cruise was amazing in Valkyrie, bro. Like you're not calling him General Van something or another, like Tom Cruise's character. But in this one, it's Otto, it's Bud, it's Rodriguez's. Like I love that they like Dante and Randall from Clerks. I think
exactly.
And like even Dazed and Confused, Wooderson. Like you just say the names of the characters, and I think that's what this movie becomes. And I feel like I do that a lot with hangout pictures like this, because maybe they're unknown actors, they're not known too well. I mean, I know all these guys, but it's interesting. I don't know. Mark TED Talk right there. I would just wow audiences with that speech, Nick. If I walked on stage and just explain things the way I just explained them, everybody in that TED Talk would just melt.
Yeah. There would be no applause because they'd have no hands because they've melted into their chairs.
Yeah. It's all, and then they form one huge gelatinous person that's quite angry with me. Like, you should have warned us.
Mm-hmm. Why would you do such a thing? Or no, their voice isn't even deep. It's just like a regular person voice.
Wait, who's in there saying that? All of us. Like, there's a collective consciousness?
Yup. Just like that, too.
And it's getting weird.
Sure.
You try learning everything about 150 people all at once.
Like I do, but don't like broccoli at the same time.
Man, that Debbie's weird.
Get back in there.
Mark Hoffmeyer's TED Talk today melted 150 people. I didn't mean to. Sorry, guys.
Whoops.
My inarticulate rantings just melted people.
When's the last time you saw a headline of somebody getting melted? It's always a shooting, a stabbing, hit by a car. Never. I know this is really dark all of a sudden. I apologize, but it's like melted.
Like in Thor Ragnarok, the melt stick. Like this person was melted at this time.
Yeah, exactly. Not in a music setting either, where, you know what I mean? It's like the solos were so shredful they melted my face. Not that. I'm talking like just.
They don't like melt your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Just literally
melt you. Yeah.
I feel like T2's not real, so that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people melt a lot in movies.
Outside of The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. But in this world, when I lived in Florida, it happened a lot more. Like local man on bike melt.
I was going to say, understandably so. Well, the tires melted and I was just stuck, so I waited for them to unstuck And then I melted with the bite.
Oh, wait, it's still talking?
Yeah, somehow my mouth is fine.
Could you get me off the ground?
Hey, remember in Page Master when the colors are just melting down? That's how I feel, but in reverse.
Have you seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit? This heat is the stuff.
Remember Dip? Yes, we remember Dip.
I have felt concrete before, where I've walked on it and I just felt like my shoes were dying.
Oh yeah. Immediately jump into the street, which weirdly is cooler, and or some grass, like immediately.
You just feel it. You're like, my shoes are gone. My Sauconys are dead.
Yep. These Hokas, no jokas, but they're done.
You know, they used to have like 2 inches of padding. Now it's down to a half an inch.
If that.
Yeah.
And that
These aren't Hokas anymore. These are...
They're Broca.
Yeah. Nokas.
My Hokas are Brocas. Nokas.
I need to go buy more, but they're like $100, $200. Damn this Florida heat.
And then you wonder, like, why am I outside? Like, I should be back inside right now. What did I ever go out for?
Stuff can literally melt. I should... No, the closest... I was working in Atlanta, and I had a Ford Ranger, and I was doing so I used to do art department for a lot of commercials, and Chick-fil-A would come in town, and they would do the photos for all the drive-thrus. So I worked, whenever you went to a Chick-fil-A and you saw the menus, like twice a year I would work on the photo shoots for those. And the reason I had the job was because I knew where to get all the best red peppers. I knew like, I'm a weird guy. I know weird data, and I know where to get the best of everything in Atlanta. So like, oh, you need red peppers? Buford's Farmers Market. You need strawberries? Whole Foods. You need Oreos without labels? Market Pantry, Target. So I would just drive. Oh, you need vanilla beans? Costco. Like, oh, you don't want them folded? Costco. I read your mind. You know, like, I just knew. And it was so hot. And I had a Ford Ranger with no air conditioning. And I had a plastic cup in my truck that just like started to melt. And I felt my brain going a little fuzzy. So I had to stay really hydrated. Because I think it was like 115. But I remember watching that cup melt. Not like Judge Doom when he gets the dip. But like you're seeing it and you're like, you're losing your consistency, little cup.
And then you're like, is it really happening or is it me right now? It's just like, because, yeah.
I felt it. So, I mean, and then I was doing the Amazing Race, and it was like 100 degrees, and I was in the Atlanta Braves parking lot. Because we had, like, before they came to every location, we had to prep it. And I remember not having anything, like, I didn't have any umbrellas or hats. And then there was no shade, and the heat came down and was bouncing off the asphalt. So I was getting hit from 2 directions. That's the closest I've ever come to melting. It was bad. This one, I know it's not technically melting, but I figure I'd toss that in there.
It's close enough.
Melting stories.
Asked and answered.
Ask me anything.
About melting.
Yeah.
AMA, parentheses.
Melting only.
Yeah, MO.
How do you feel about melting? I'm for it.
Hey, all right, thanks for coming out, everybody.
I try my best, Mitch Hedberg. How do you feel about a duck stealing sun chips? I'm for it. Is that what it is? Oh, no. Doubletree. Let's
toothpicks and toothpicks and sandwiches to hold them up. I'm for it.
Yeah. Single tree. Doubletree. I'm for it. Meeting over.
Snap, crackle, Mitch, and pop.
I'm gonna have some rice later because I just really want 4,000 of something.
I got 2 straws in this drink in case one breaks down.
This guy ran up to me and I said, "You have a lot of cranial accessories." I just love that line. I want to say a vending machine. Vending machine. It would be so literal. That guy was the best.
Almost too good.
Yeah. I miss him. But yeah, Repo Man. Have you watched the Repo Man remake with Jude Law? I don't.
Is that really a remake, or is it like kind of a play on, or?
I mean, it's called Repo Man, right? I think what they do is they go get the flesh of people. So Repo. Oh, a young punk. Oh no. No. Oh wait. Medical technology is. Oh, that's stupid. So in Repo, that's stupid. And if they can't repay, like they get organs. Mm-hmm. And if they can't pay for their organs, you hire the Repo Men to go get the organs back. So Jude Law and Forrest Whitaker have to steal people's organs, like livers, back. You defaulted on your liver. Let me have it. Get out of here. Maybe they're making a statement on like the medical health insurance.
They gotta be, right?
But you can't make a statement movie with like a $50 million budget.
Little tough. Especially when you have like Jude Law, Forrest Whitaker, I think the RZA, you know what I mean? Like Liev Schreiber.
Let's have millionaires insult bad idea, y'all. Bad idea. Just watch Repo Man again.
Yeah, and again and again.
And again.
And then get the Criterion so you can watch the TV edit.
Melon farmers.
You melon farmer.
You know, I do some of my favorite lines though in this movie, and I do think there is life to live by, where like, you know, only an asshole would get killed from trying to steal a car. Like, when I was a young punk, there's some things you do that are kind of dumb. So if you sat there and just went, man, only an asshole would do this, you probably wouldn't do it.
No. Or it's one of those things where you're like, man, I kind of respect that person's opinion, or I kind of admire them in some kind of way. So if they found out that I did this thing, my standing with them would then be less, and I don't want that to happen.
Because there's some things if you tell people, they're like, why? But I dig that. I like that line. And then the code, too. I also think this movie is a pretty good, like, watching Harry Dean Stanton and Emilio together. Like, Harry can't even get to Emilio, or Otto, and the Bud can't even get to Otto in this movie. Like, these guys are, you know, I think they almost had a mentor relationship, and he was looking forward to that, but Otto's so Otto. And I kind of like how the code of Harry Dean Stanton sort of, he comes out with the bat, even though he talks about not having guns. Like he seems to have contradictions, and I don't know. It's just an interesting relationship between these two guys. And also Harry Dean Stanton, he's a character actor, extraordinaire. And so watching him have a little bit of a lead role in this movie made me happy as well. Like he's a guy who I always like seeing. Like when he's on The Big Bounce with Willie Nelson for about 6 minutes, and they're just playing dominoes, I think. Made me happy.
I think something.
Put him in a movie. Yeah. I like seeing him.
Why not?
Put him in Alien. Have a Xenomorph kill him. Perfect. Put him in Repo Man. Put him in a green car.
Put him in anything David Lynch has done.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Well, most things David Lynch has done.
That's true. But no, I mean, just watching this, and I guess I understand why this movie is. It's not talked about much today. Or is it because we're not looking for it?
I think we're not looking for it because we're too focused on other things. I think we're starting to see a shift with film and cinema where now we're getting back more towards that like absurd kind of out there stuff. For a while, everybody was leaning on, hey, what do people already know? We don't have to work as hard to sell it, right? Anything DC, anything Marvel, all the the myriad of Fast and Furious films we had, not knocking any of them, but it's a little bit easier of a sell if you're already familiar with the product versus something like Repo Man where it's like, you know, what's that about? Oof, it's about a guy that repossesses cars. But there's also this, that, and the other thing. Like genre films, I think, are going to start coming back a little bit more and more because you have companies like Neon. You have companies like A24 that they might not have put the money out for it, sure, but they're putting it out there. They're releasing it. They're trying to get the film out there to be seen. And there's some wild stuff that I've seen based solely on because Neon did it or because A24 did it. And had I not done that, I would have missed out on a bunch of other stuff. So I think this is one of those instances where if you have a company like that that's kind of pushing the weird out there, if you will, like, you know, you don't expect it. You're not going to. And the other thing, too, is we don't have blockbusters anymore. We don't have the stores where you're actively walking through and the artwork catches you somewhere. We don't. We have Netflix and Amazon Prime, and unless you were specifically looking for that, you're not going to find it because all of them have their algorithms. They've talked about how they change the artwork based upon other things that you've watched, which I think is insane to get your attention in order to watch that. So unless you're actively watching a bunch of Emilio Estevez or a bunch of stuff about cars or a bunch of stuff about aliens, I doubt you're going to see it. But even then, putting all of that together doesn't even touch what the film's about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's nuts.
The closest thing, I mean, I know he did Sid and Nancy, but for some reason this movie just went so far under my radar, and now it's not. Now I've seen it, and I love it, and I've listened to all the commentaries, watched the TV cut, and watched pretty much any interview I could find online. I watched a roundtable discussion. I watched Harry Dean Stanton complain for 20 minutes on the Criterion. This, too. I guess him and Alex Cox didn't get along. He's like, I worked with Francis Ford Coppola, and they let me do whatever I want. And then Alex Cox is Like, well, because first time direct, like M Night Shyamalan said he micromanaged on his first films. Like I think sometimes first time directors do that because they don't know any better.
Tarantino, didn't he shoot like on Reservoir Dogs like so much footage over and over and over and over again because he felt like he had to do that or something like that, right? Like where he shot like way more footage than what was necessary of the same thing over and over and over again. Like, all right, cool, let's take it again, take it from the top or do whatever.
And it's lucky he had that much money for film too. I mean, I guess he kept the locations small, but that movie relies so much on moments and people being comfortable together that you probably do need to shoot a lot to get those moments.
And that dynamic and build that comfortability, I guess, with everybody. Because it really does, outside of 2, maybe 3 scenes, it's all, like you said, in one location. It's essentially a play.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There just happens to be a camera, and they're catching it from different angles.
I think his movies, I think maybe his later films can't have that because they got, like, Inglourious Bastards. I don't know how much footage you can get because it's so tightly scripted, but I think more of like a Reservoir Dog, that's more of a hangout picture. I know it's not, but it's definitely more of a hangout picture.
Yeah. You're hanging out with them at the table having breakfast, and you're learning about all these different characters in the most bizarre ways. Then they're handing out names, and then they're stuck to the floor with blood that's actually just red corn syrup, and they get pried off. You're doing all these things. You're literally just hanging out with these people because you never once go to the heist. And this film, do they ever really repossess a car? We see it in the beginning.
They take it from that one guy who falls on his head.
Where they're shooting the blanks and everything.
Yeah, I think they get maybe 3 or 4 cars. He gets beat up trying to take one car because it's on
the
lifts,
jacks or the lifts
jacks.
Or whatever. Yeah.
So he can't get that.
But there's not a whole lot of it because if this film was made today, there's going to be a montage from when he gets that first set of money, right? He might put it on a dresser table, and then it's going to cut to him running from a dog, jumping into a car, barely starting it, and taking off more money on the dresser table. It's just going to be car after car after car, stacks of money, and doing whatever with that. Somebody would do that.
Sounds like a Miles Teller movie.
Maybe. I could see him in this role.
In the montage. Yeah, and what's interesting is I really gravitate towards these type of films. I find myself revisiting a lot of Jim Jarmusch movies. Like, I watched Coffee and Cigarettes alone in a theater when I was at Florida State, the Terra Theater, and just hanging out with these people, watching them smoke coffee and drink cigarettes. Mm-hmm. That seems right. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They sit there and exist, and watching Patterson. Watching Adam Driver just exist. Watching Only Lovers Left Alive. These two people just exist. Even Dead Don't Die, Ghost Dog. I think that's what that's why I think I love his movies and I often go back to them a lot. Maybe I just like watching characters exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a character study, non-character study. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're hanging out with this person, you're learning about them, and maybe they're dropping little nuggets of wisdom, but that's not the point of the film. Right? Repo Men, you're talking about what they do. A bunch of guys that are repoing cars. But because you hang out with certain ones, little nuggets of information or just little wisdoms like that. Same with, like you said, Ghost Dog and other films like that where you're just kind of with that part, like Rushmore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just kind of with Jason Schwartzman's character. Like,
that's a great point. Early Wes Anderson movies very much so connected with me. When we're talking about Rushmore or Bottle Rocket. You sort of just exist or watch these people at the hotel. Or
same with Tenenbaums.
Yeah. You're right.
That becomes like a weird combination drama, documentary, encyclopedia kind of amalgamation where it's like, here's this person, and then everything you want to know about this person to kind of catch you up.
And I also think Patterson's lovely, and so is Only Lovers Left Alive and Repo Man because the stakes aren't spectacularly high. So as much as I love Royal Tenenbaums, it's not a real hangout picture because of the needle in the hay moment. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, but it's a very much so a emotional roller coaster. Repo Man is not. Patterson's not. Only Lovers Left. Like, I think that's why I keep coming back to these films because you aren't taking on this massive journey and you can just sort of watch people exist without too much drama going on.
Because life is so hectic right now. The news is constantly in your face. All this stuff is constantly happening. You literally just want to hang out with someone. But because all these other people's schedules are so hectic, you can't always get the time to line up. And then when you have time lined up to schedule, it's always a different energy because you're busy catching up. You're busy having a meal or doing whatever. And you don't have those conversations like you do in a hangout movie. So it's easier to pull up low stakes, hanging out, sharing some knowledge and nuggets, and just enjoy that for 90 minutes. You know what I mean? It's much easier to take 90 minutes than it is 2.5, 3 hours. Like, way easier.
And this movie does it. I'm so happy we did it. This was awesome, man. This makes me very happy. I wish I had more. I wish I had more for you, but this is just a good movie. Oh, I mean, the guy who millionaires don't pay bills. I remember that guy gets his car stolen.
Yeah.
That was an interesting line.
I really like that line. Something about it just when he said it, I'm like, he's right. It's just one of those like, yep.
This guy had me. All right, well, what else you got? Anything else?
I liked it. I think I'm going to go out and get the Criterion for this now. And you know what's funny? I purchased a Criterion Blu-ray, and then like 2 months later, they're like, we're going to release it on 4K. And I'm like, oh, great. Why didn't I just wait a little bit?
Yeah, they're doing all the 4Ks now.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a sucker for that, but
wait,
can we do something? What you like.
Can we do something real quick?
Sure.
1984 is one of my favorite years of all time for cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And Purple Rain came out then, our most popular episode. Mm-hmm. I think you and I should do a 1984 draft.
I am so for it.
All right. All right, I'll give you first pick.
But this movie, like right now? We're doing it like right now? Oh, jeez. Oh, God. This is
put you on the spot.
You really did. Let's see. I know this is a bit of a unpopular pick, but or at least I think it's unpopular a little bit. Dune.
Oh, heck yeah, man.
I know, like the newest one that just came out, astounding. I'm there for it, but there's something about that original one that just. And then the recent 4K release of it that's been remastered, it looks that much better. It feels great. I really enjoy Kyle MacLachlan. I don't think he gets enough credit as he should. Like, I'm for it. Like, I'm digging.
Love it. I got the Arrow release of Dune. I love that release.
See, there you go.
It's wonderful. All right, I'm gonna do Beverly Hills Cop. I know it's just biggest movie of the year. Eddie Murphy's perfection. I just did a commentary of it with Aaron Newworth for the Out Now with Aaron and Abe podcast, and Eddie Murphy's performance is incredible. So I love the chemistry in that movie. That's another good hangout picture. So I'm going to say Beverly Hills Cop.
I'm going to say Terminator.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a very unpopular opinion. I've had people shout at me because of this. I think the Terminator is borderline a perfect film.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's ever been a need for the other Terminator films. I think Terminator 2 is not as good as everybody makes it out to be. I think there are moments in the later films. We talked about the bathroom fight in number 3. There's moments in other films that I think are actually stronger than the whole of what Terminator 2 is. So for me, like, Terminator's kind of it. I might catch a lot of flack for that, but like it's
so simple.
Yeah.
Terminator. Kyle Reese, like, come with me if you want to live. A Terminator comes back to kill the woman who births the leader of the revolution, and they got to run. And it's perfect. And it's low budget, and it's Cameron using his Roger Corman skills. Excellent world creation. The flash forwards to that world are amazing.
It's a great chase movie. Who doesn't like a good chase movie? Like, you're nuts if you don't like a good chase film.
I love a good chase film. I'm gonna do a movie I discovered later in life. I'm gonna take Top Secret because of skeet surfing. Just the bar fight underwater.
It's a really good one.
The moving train station. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take Top Secret. All right, what you got? What you got next?
This is a real left, like hard left. Night of the Comet.
Oh, I love Night of the Comet. Oh man.
The FTS gang went to a Dismember the Alamo on Halloween a couple years ago, and this was one of the films that they played. And I remember, I mean, it's the effects. It doesn't hold up as great, but there's just some moments where I'm just completely enthralled. I'm like, this film is just, it's got me. Like it really has me, and I'm for it. Like
and there's Uzis in it.
also really dig zombie films, but still, like I dig it.
And the sisters are badass. There's no Buffy the Vampire Slayer without it. Oh man, what a pick! I'm jealous. Let's just quit. Let's just start over. I get first pick, and I'll take it. I'll just get real petty. Okay. I'm sorry I got to do this, but this is a movie I watched late in life. Not later in life, like probably in the 2000s, that I absolutely adore. It's The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. It's another hangout picture that I absolutely love. And Johnny, like just all the different Johnnies and like, wherever you are there, you like just all the beautiful lines, all the hanging out. I love The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. It's perfect. So I'm going to take that one.
Nice.
My comment, you son of a.
Back to me again?
Yeah.
Okay. I just didn't want to talk. The Natural.
Oh.
I might not watch sports all the time, but put a sports documentary in front of me, I will all day sit there and watch it. Every so often you have a really good sports film that comes out, and there's something about it that just it works. Like it feels like a biopic, even though like it's not. Like it's just a random guy, you know what I mean? And he just goes on and becomes this great baseball legend. And the way the film ends, I'm not going to ruin it, but the way the film ends, like it's just such magic, right? And we go to the movies for magic. We go for those moments, and to have that moment, it just feels good.
Great movie. You nailed it. Catherine Mary Stewart had a great 84. She did Night of the Comet and The Last Starfighter.
Solid.
Okay, I had a movie, and I where was it? Where'd it go? I had it, and I lost it, Nick. This is great podcasting. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to do this. Purple Rain. I love Purple Rain.
Why didn't I even think of that?
I love Purple Rain.
That should have been number one with a bullet.
We're going down, down. Sorry. So yeah, Purple Rain. I mean, the soundtrack, the movie, it's a global phenomenon, and you and I had a wild episode. That probably the most work I've ever put in for an episode, because researching each song of Purple Rain is a wonderful chore. So yeah, I'm gonna take Purple Rain, and you get
how many more do I have?
You have one more.
One more. Oh man, which one do I pick? I'm between two. I'm gonna go Amadeus.
Oh, perfect.
I feel like that's a good way to round it out. I was very fortunate. A couple years ago, the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra showed the film and did the score live while the film was going. And it's already a powerful score. But with a live orchestra like that, get out of town. Like chills thinking about it now still. Like it was just so powerful. We did the same last year. We went and saw Empire Strikes Back with a live score. And it just adds. It adds to the thrill and the magic of films, and that's why we go to them. That's why we watch them. That's why we see them, like for that magic, for that excitement.
That movie will always be important to me, because while watching F. Murray Abraham, and this was probably early 90s, and so I was maybe 10 or somewhere right around there, but I remember watching that movie and going, this is acting. I distinctly... You know, when you're 10, you just enjoy movies. Like I watch everything, and you're just like, this is great. But sometimes there's moments in your life where you go, oh, so this is when someone has a hot hand. Like I remember feeling that, and that's like I think a feeling that I'll always remember that moment. So that's a great pick. I'm just gonna take the Neverending Story because. Oh, okay. I mean, come on now, the horse, the wolf, the scary, just. Horrifying, but beautiful.
And the Never is truly terrifying, too, the way they talk about it. And a guy at work and myself were always like, they were just such strong hands. Yeah. Like, we say that too much, really. So good, though.
My love of rock monsters comes from that movie. It's so that's it. This is good. This should be our own. I'm going to start doing video shorts. We should do this just as a video short sometime.
Yes, we should.
This is a nice run through.
And don't even know ahead of time. Here it is, and then just a year generator, and then boom, you got 5 minutes, go.
That's like, oh! Yeah, see, I think that's what we should do. I'm going to start releasing shorts, like 10, 15-minute episodes, videos on YouTube. So, well, you have to be on it if you want.
Call them on the spots.
Oh, on the spots.
because
like
it's a
that.
spot, right? It's a little spot. It's a little bit.
And you're on it.
Yeah. On the spot. Hey, on the spot. Boom. What's that? I'm like, oh my god. Like,
Sink or swim. Burrito sandwich. That wasn't a movie released in 1984, like,
yes,
or
it
was
was.
it? Yeah, it's
Oh,
just
I like that.
direct to VHS.
In this timeline, it wasn't.
Prove it wasn't.
Prove it.
Well, here on IMDb, I can't see it. Doesn't matter.
If I type burrito sandwich into Google, nothing shows up film wise. It's all about like how to make one.
Is it a burrito or a sandwich? Pointless argument. Hey, Nick, thank you for joining me, man. And where can people find you?
People can find me actually in a new project and endeavor. I was recently invited to become the co-host of Lyrical Innuendo. So Bubba Wheat and myself, we take a deep dive into lyrics of popular songs throughout history. Wow. And we break down the lyrics. We try to figure out if there's hidden meanings or anything, and we determine if the song's about sex, drugs, or just good old rock and roll. Episodes drop on Spotify because on the Spotify version, we can actually play the full song. And this way you can listen to the song and then we talk about it. And then we release it further down the line where the song's taken out. But check it out. It's called Lyrical Innuendo. It's on Spotify. So give it a listen after this episode.
If you ever need somebody for a Why Can't I Breathe episode, Why Can't I Breathe by Liz Phair episode, let me know. Because I love that song. Because it's so blunt. And it's just all about sex. But it gets played on like PG movies. Like, Why Can't I Breathe? But she's like, we're already wet and we're going to go swimming. Like, we haven't blanked yet, but my head's spinning. Like, she's like, we're getting it.
It's happening one way or the other.
Yeah, there's no innuendo. She's straight up saying, we haven't blanked yet, but my head's spinning. Like, but it gets played on so many kids shows, and I love it. So it's just, I love it. All right. Well, hey, Nick, that was awesome.
Thank you.
You're a joy. Thank you for coming on. And this was great. So for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, for Nicholas Rehak, this is Movies, Films, and Flicks. We'll see you next week.